Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome back to my podcast for those of you who are listening to this episode in the audio version only. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we are going to be talking about eclipse season. So like I promised, I am doing an eclipse season special. We are going to be analyzing the upcoming eclipses happening on the Taurus Scorpio axis. The first eclipse of this season is taking place on the 30th of April, the second on the 15th, 16th of May, depending on where you are located in the world. Before we begin, before we start talking eclipses, let me share a few important things with you. I'm a Western tropical astrologer, therefore all videos on my channel, all episodes on my podcast will follow Western tropical astrology. In my practice, I use the whole sign house system. I don't use Placidus, I don't use equal houses, so just in case you are looking at your natal chart in another house system, that is why you may see things happening somewhere else in your natal chart. I use whole sign because I have found it to be the most accurate in my experience and in my clients' experience, and also because in Western astrology, it is the oldest house system out there. If you want to work with me, if you want to book a 1-hour live astrological consultation, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. I'm currently taking bookings for the last week of May and the beginning of June. I also want to remind you, you might have heard me mention this a few times, but I want to remind you of it. In May, I will be running an online course. Throughout the whole month of May, we're going to catch up every weekend. The course is called Astrological Forecasting with Transits. So together you are going, together with other astrology students and obviously with me, you are going to learn how to build a forecast for you, an astrological forecast for you or for others or both, using the most popular forecasting technique out there, which is transits. And you're also going to learn how to utilize solar returns together with transits in this course. This is a 5-part online course. We will get together from the 7th of May until the end of May, every Saturday. And in the last weekend of May, we will get together both on Saturday and on Sunday. All sessions, all classes will be recorded. So if you cannot make it live to any of the classes, then that's okay. You will have the recording to watch or to rewatch as many times as you may need to. I'm going to leave a link in the comment section and also in the description box if you want to sign up. This course is perfect for astrology students who already have a good kind of like foundation when it comes to understanding natal charts. So when it comes to understanding the meaning of houses, of signs, of planets, the symbolism of all of these, and you want to take your practice to the next natural, logical level, which is forecasting. Sign up if you're interested, and also please keep in mind that there are limited spaces available, and the course is almost 70% sold out. Let's talk about eclipse season, folks. So, first eclipse of this season is happening on the 30th of April. It is a solar eclipse in the sign of Taurus. It will conjunct Uranus. And the second eclipse of this season is happening on the 15th, 16th of May. And this one, okay, so I've got a favorite amongst the two, and I'll just put it out there. My favorite in this case out of the two eclipses is the one on the 30th of April, not necessarily the one on the 15th, 16th of May, just because the one on the 15th, 16th of May is in a tense aspect. It is forming a T-square in the sky with Saturn. And let me just tell you, we are all collectively probably going to have to swallow some hard pales at the second eclipse. The first eclipse, however, on the 30th of April, we've got some interesting surprises there. We've got some pleasant surprises. We've got some unexpected developments, but unexpected, I'd say, in what feels like a positive way, like a beneficial way, or it could just be unexpected developments in a direction that we're pleased to hear about. Now, folks, first and foremost, let us talk a little bit about why eclipse season is so special. Why do we make such a fuss about it? Well, because eclipses are said to correspond with major milestone moments in our life. Big new beginnings and big endings. And if you look back in time, whenever there were eclipses in the sky, activating some of your natal planetary placements, you might see that they correspond with a memorable moment, a memorable time, a memorable chapter. So do keep in mind the following. We may feel eclipses the strongest, just like we feel any sort of like transit, when it activates something in our natal chart, when it activates a planet, when it activates an angle, especially by one of the strongest, let's call them aspects out there, the conjunction, the square, and the opposition. But let's go back to eclipses. Let's go back to eclipse season. So eclipses travel with the nodal axis. That's why they are said to correspond with fated events. They are said to give us a nudge in the direction of our destiny. Sometimes it feels like whatever happens at an eclipse just takes us by surprise. It happens completely out of the blue, out of nowhere. It's like, oh, I did not see that coming. But, in general, in astrology, if we look back in time to check what was going on in our lives when there were eclipses, for instance, happening on the same axis, so Taurus, Scorpio, we may see that there is some sort of correspondence. There is some sort of continuation maybe of themes. There is a similarity in the themes that we are dealing with from an archetypal perspective. Also, please do keep in mind, like I always say, astrology is only archetypally predictive. It does not predict exact material manifestation. That's why I always offer scenarios, and we discuss about various options and let's say possibilities as to how things may unfold. But let me tell you this, if there is an astrologer out there that can tell you that they can predict the future with 100% accuracy, they're a con artist. So I do want you to keep that in mind. Astrology does not predict exact material manifestation because it does not predict your free will. It does not predict the free will of anyone. We have that in this lifetime and in general. We will always have that. So eclipses are super special because they're said to be karmic events, fated events. People come into our life, people exit our lives. Generally, also the transits of the nodal axis are connected with fated encounters, and of course, eclipses travel with the nodes. Lunar eclipses are full moons or super strong full moons. Solar eclipses are new moons or super strong new moons. When was the last time when we experienced eclipses happening on the Taurus-Scorpio axis like we are experiencing throughout this eclipse season? This happened between November of 2012 and October of 2014, and also before that, between November of 2002 and April of 2005. Roughly every 9 years, we will experience eclipses in the same pair of signs. So just keep that in mind. I would also recommend, as I generally do, maybe sitting down and jogging your memory and thinking, how did my life change? Is there anything remarkable, anything memorable that occurred in my life? Again, between November of 2012 and October of 2014, and also before that, between November of 2002 and April of 2005. That is the million dollar question. And now in general, what do Taurus and Scorpio deal with in terms of archetypal energies? Because this is probably what will be at the top of our minds throughout this eclipse season. So topics connected with our security, our assets, our resources. Taurus and Scorpio are connected with money and power. Taurus also rules over food, agriculture. Scorpio rules over the stock market, investments. Both signs are associated with money and power. Taurus says, this is mine, this is my property, this is my money. Scorpio says, yes, but I know things about, or I know how to access other people's resources so that I can kind of like pull power in my direction, so that I can utilize what I know, what I've figured out, let's say. So the big topics that we're dealing with around the world at this point in time throughout eclipse season will most likely be connected with food, money, power, security, stock market, the economy, what is buried, what lies hidden, gas, mining, petrol, the tangible versus the unseen, versus the occult, versus the conspiracy. I just read in the news, literally a few minutes ago, a few minutes before I started filming this video, I just read that in the UK, supermarkets are setting limits on the sale of cooking oil. So you can't just go into the supermarket and buy how many bottles of cooking oil you want right now. No, they're limiting your allowance to 3 items per customer. You might ask why. Well, by the looks of it, because, or that's what the BBC says, by the looks of it, because supplies of cooking oil are hit by the war in Ukraine. Will there be disruption in terms of access to food, to resources? Probably, folks. Probably. Is it something to really worry about? I don't know yet. I don't think so. Like, that's my take on things. So this is why eclipse season is special. This is why we should care about it. And in general, I do recommend paying special attention to eclipses that, like I said, activate something in your natal chart. Look at the degree of the eclipse and then check your natal chart and see whether, in this case, you have any planets or any angles, the ascendant, the midheaven, close to 10 degrees of fixed signs. So Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo. Also check to see if you've got any planets close to 25 degrees of fixed signs, because that is where the second eclipse of this season takes place. So again, look at the fixed signs: Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo. You folks are going to feel this the strongest. For instance, I have my natal Mercury at 8 degrees of Aquarius, so I'm probably going to feel the most the eclipse happening on the 30th of April, because it's happening at 10 degrees of Taurus, so it is going to square my natal Mercury. So what can I expect from that? Well, it's probably going to challenge some of my existing patterns, maybe fixed ideas of existing patterns of thinking. But enough about me. Let's talk about the 2 eclipses separately. Of course, we are going to go through what the 12 zodiac signs can expect from each of these eclipses. Let's look at the eclipse on the 30th of April first. So 30th of April, week before, week after, do kind of like keep in mind to look at the entire period, at the entire time frame. This is a solar eclipse, so a super powerful new moon, a new beginning, happening in Taurus at 10 degrees, 28 minutes of Taurus. Again, I like this eclipse. Even though it is conjunct Uranus, even though there is a very, very powerful wild card energy about this eclipse, I like it. I'm thinking at a collective level, it could bring news of exciting technological developments that will help us get better access to food. There could be some sort of like discovery or invention, something very neat, very kind of like novel, progressive, innovative, that maybe solves a problem connected with food, connected with access to food, maybe solves a problem connected with our sense of safety, security, and stability. There could also be some sort of unexpected development when it comes to currency, when it comes to money, when it comes to the economy. Now, why do I like this eclipse? Not just because it's conjunct Uranus, because some people might call me crazy for that. And I'll just leave it at that. I like this eclipse because it's in a harmonious aspect with Mars. And Venus, which is the ruler of the eclipse, is conjunct Jupiter in Pisces. So Venus is exalted in Pisces. Jupiter is in its domicile in Pisces. There can be some massive breakthroughs that we're experiencing globally, collectively. Again, when it comes to food, nutrition, money, there could be a discovery. There could be some sort of solution that we did not think of up until this point. It feels like this benefits everyone because Venus is in Pisces, and Pisces is the sign of like no borders, no boundaries. Now, of course, we might have the conspiracy theorists say things like, oh, globalization is bad, or things like that. It's not okay to kind of like have no boundaries, no structures, no borders. I think this will be beneficial for people, though. It may be a discovery that has something to do with the healing power of food. That is possible. It may be some sort of like invention that we hear of around this time that maybe solves a global issue that people in poverty maybe were dealing with, because Pisces is generally a sign that thinks of that has at the top of their mind those who are suffering. So Pisces wants to alleviate suffering. So there's a lot of good intentions, and I know what they say, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I don't think it is in this case. I think it's genuinely something that will revolutionize either money or food and access to food. I think it's something that will revolutionize one of these two areas for the long run. So I'm excited about it. I will just say it. Now, I also like the fact that there could be some sort of like inventions, discoveries, news connected with maybe healing the physical body, because Taurus is a sign that in general has rulership over the 5 physical senses. I like it. And the fact that it is sextiling Mars in Pisces, I mean, it feels like this is something that can be actioned very quickly, very fast. It feels like whatever development, whatever invention, whatever discovery we're dealing with, it feels like it's something that can be applied straight away, I'd say. There's some sort of solution, some sort of aha moment, some sort of like seed that is planted that will probably change, maybe for years to come, maybe for decades to come, how we think about food, agriculture, our body, and so on. Now, I do believe that this eclipse pinpoints the seed moment of something. We may not see the results, or we may not see exactly what we can expect from this seed moment until January of 2023. Why? Because between the 7th until the 19th of January 2023 is when the nodal axis reaches 10 degrees of Taurus, which is the degree at which the eclipse takes place. So they do say that something is planted at the eclipse, and then when the nodal axis reaches that point, it's like, okay, here's your result. Here's the outcome of whatever was planted in the past. This eclipse is a solar eclipse, a partial solar eclipse, actually, that belongs to Saros cycle number 119. This Saros cycle contains 71 events. That is 71 eclipses, folks. Now, what is the Saros cycle? Maybe this is super geeky and maybe you're interested, maybe not. I mean, I know people who are interested in the signs will just jump straight to their part, but let's get a little bit geeky. So the Saros cycle, or the Saros series, is a sequence of similar eclipses that occurs every 18 years and 11 days. They were discovered, these Saros cycles, by the ancient Babylonians, some say by the Chaldeans. Well, it was all a bit of a bish bash bosh at the time in ancient Babylon, right? Each Saros cycle is identified by a number. You can actually Google Saros cycle 119 and find from NASA's website the entire list of eclipses that belongs to this cycle. Essentially, when two eclipses are separated by a period of one Saros, what is a period of one Saros? Roughly 18 years and 11 days. And I think it's like about 8 hours as well. So when two eclipses are separated by one Saros, they share a very similar geometry. So they look pretty similar in the sky. They occur at the same lunar node, so either the north node or the south node, with the moon at nearly the same distance from Earth and at roughly the same time of the year. The eclipses do not occur in the same sign, however, so I do want to flag that. They are similar in geometry. This eclipse on the 30th of April is the 66th eclipse of Saros series number 119. Now, you might have read online, you might have heard from other astrologers that this eclipse actually belonged to Saros series number 6. This is something that Bernadette Brady says. Bernadette Brady is considered to be an expert in eclipses in the astrological circles. Essentially, Bernadette Brady and myself and NASA we're talking about the same series of eclipses, but it is very likely that Bernadette doesn't keep track of the Saros series that have ended in the past, whereas NASA does. That's why NASA says that this is part of the Saros series number 119, and Bernadette Brady says that it is part of Saros series number 6. So she's not keeping track of the series that have ended. Now, this particular Saros series started with a partial solar eclipse happening on the 15th of May, 850 Anno Domini. So what's that? Like Common Era, 850 after Christ. I think that's how it's called. The most recent eclipse that is part of this series took place on the 19th of April, 2004. So you may see a continuation of themes in your life that remind you of the eclipse that you experienced in 2004, in April of 2004. There could be a similarity in themes. There could be a similar kind of like feeling that you experience on a personal level. And before that, so what is the eclipse part of the same Saros series that occurred before April of 2004? It occurred on the 9th of April, 1986. So, oh my gosh, that's like, what, 36 years ago. Saros series number 119 ends at number 71 as a partial eclipse in June of 2000, of the year 2112. So we're getting super geeky here. Essentially, you could say that an eclipse that belongs to a specific Saros series carries with it themes that were present at the very first eclipse that was part of this, that essentially initiated this series. In the same way that we carry the natal chart with us throughout our lives, you could say that for eclipses that are part of a Saturn series, the first eclipse of the cycle of the series is the natal chart in a way. So what did the eclipse in 1850 look like? Well, it was conjunct Jupiter. So you could say that it brought in a time of expansion, a time of abundance, a time of growth, a time of prosperity. It was very nicely aspected to Neptune. So it may have felt like people wanted to share what they have. They wanted to share what was abundantly present in their life, especially of a material nature. And also, I think it's important to keep in mind that Venus, the ruler of the eclipse, was in Aries at the time, in a tense aspect with Mars in Capricorn. So there may have been some confrontations, there may have been some disputes around who decides what to do with the available resources. So maybe we can experience, maybe we're likely to experience quite a bit of that as well at the eclipse on the 30th of April, week before, week after. Now, this eclipse on the 30th of April is visible from Southern America, parts of Antarctica, and over the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. Technically, experts in eclipses, astrologically speaking, say that the parts of the world that see the eclipse are likely to be in the news, or are likely to be the most impacted, or are likely to be at the forefront of our mind. So I repeat, this is visible from southern South America, parts of Antarctica, and over the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans, which makes sense also because the ruler of this eclipse is placed in Pisces. So what can each sign expect from this eclipse coming up on the 30th? Please, remember, folks, I always say, if you don't know your rising sign, if you don't know your ascendant, find it out. Find out the time that you were born at, and then you can go online and generate your natal chart, and you're going to see what your rising sign is, what your ascendant is. The ascendant is the exact degree of the rising sign. I do realize that sometimes I sound like a broken record because I always say this, but it is important. If you want to get the most out of astrology, it's important to know what your natal chart looks like. It's important to also know the various degrees of the planets in your natal chart, because that's when you can say, okay, this is going to affect me, or I'm going to feel this and I'm not going to feel that event that Rux was talking in her horoscope. My lovely Aries suns and Aries risings. On the 30th of April, week before, week after, you are experiencing a solar eclipse in your second house of income, conjunct Uranus, and sextiling Mars in Pisces in the 12th house. And Venus is conjunct Jupiter in Pisces in your 12th house. Well, I do believe there's going to be some very exciting developments for you financially. Maybe something that you've been doing behind the scenes becomes an important source of income for you. Maybe something that you are doing at home, maybe something that you are keeping hidden. It feels like it is time to monetize this particular skill, or this particular maybe side hustle. There could be an unexpected, out of the blue opportunity for you to make money in a novel way. You could also have an aha moment, or someone in your life might pinpoint this to you. You could have an aha moment about one of your talents, maybe something that you took for granted, maybe something that you thought, oh, this is nothing special. I shouldn't flatter myself. It could feel like, I have this and I'm good at this and no one else can do this. So very pleasant developments financially, possibly a new source of income making its way to you, maybe someone coming into your life and saying, why don't you monetize this? I do recommend paying special attention to this because this is the seed moment. And remember that you need to look, or you will need to be patient maybe in a way in order to see the results of this seed that is being planted now. You will need to be patient until January of next year, because that is when the nodal axis reaches the exact degree of this eclipse on the, well, between the 7th and the 19th of January 2023, my lovely Aries. A windfall, maybe. So I'm excited for you. Let us know how this eclipse works out. If you are a Taurus sun or a Taurus rising, dun 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 dun, my dear Taurians, you are the absolute stars of this eclipse, because it's obviously happening in your sign. It feels like you're having an epiphany around the 30th of April, week before, week after. You're having an epiphany about your life direction, about where you want to be headed in life. You could have this moment where you wake out of bed in the morning and you say, I want to do this. I want to go in this direction. This is what matters to me. This is what's important to me. And it could feel like, yes, I'm a free woman, a free man, a free person. I can do whatever on earth I want, and it feels good. You feel excited. It's a time of tremendous opportunities for a new beginning, and you may feel like you want to unshackle yourself from anything that is not aligned with this exciting new life direction. You may feel like you're a new person around this time, or like you want to become a new person, and it is very possible that you will take steps, you will take action to become this new person. There's also the possibility that you may decide to enter into a new group of people around this time that will change completely how you see yourself, what matters to you, what's important to you in the long run, and yeah, basically how you approach all of life, relationships, yourself, everything. Beautiful, 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 my dear Taurians. Now, if you are a Gemini sun or a Gemini rising, the eclipse on the 30th of April, week before, week after, is happening in your 12th house, which is the house of what happens behind the scenes, what goes on behind the scenes, what you don't see coming. It is the house of the shadow, but it is also a place of connecting with something beyond the 3D material reality. So this eclipse is happening in your 12th house, and it is nicely aspected to Mars in Pisces in your 10th house of career, and Venus, the ruler of the eclipse, is obviously conjunct Jupiter in your 10th house. You may feel ready, Geminis, to do one or two things, or one of the following. You may feel ready to leave behind an old career path, so you could feel like you're having this aha moment where you realize, I don't have to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I no longer want this role, this position. I no longer want to be in this industry. And it feels like you're getting out of jail almost. Well, metaphorically speaking, of course. It's almost like you receive this get out of jail card. Maybe you're giving it to yourself. Maybe your subconscious programmed things to happen so that you receive this get out of jail free card. Another possibility is the following. Something that's going on behind the scenes might result in you receiving an exciting career opportunity. It's completely unexpected. I'll just say it. It feels intuitively right. It also feels like something that you are going to see fully blossom or fully take shape in your life in January of next year, when the nodal axis will reach the degree of the eclipse. You may also have a very powerful revelation in private, in your sleep, in your meditations, about your professional life, about your career, and about what you should be doing next career-wise, where you should be going next career-wise. Now, if you are a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising, like yours truly, the eclipse on the 30th of April, week before, week after, is happening in your 11th house of friends, of collaborators, of long-term goals, plans, and dreams. It is in a harmonious aspect with Mars in Pisces in the 9th house, and that is also where the ruler of the eclipse is, Venus conjunct Jupiter. Probably an exciting opportunity to maybe teach or learn in a group type of setup, this could be coming your way. You may also join a group of people around this time that completely change your worldview and your belief system. There could also be an unexpected encounter with a friend or with a group of people that determines you to look at your life and to see it in a new light, to see it in a new perspective. And as a result of this, you may also reevaluate your long-term goals and objectives and say, you know what? Why have I set this goal? Is it for me, or is it because society expects me to fulfill this? And you might say, I don't care about this goal. I've realized it was just something imposed upon me by parents, society, etc., etc. So it can feel like a very liberating time. Now, if you are a Leo sun or a Leo rising, this new moon solar eclipse will take place in your 10th house of career, public status, and public reputation, and it will harmoniously aspect Mars in Pisces in your 8th house. Now, for you, my dear Leos, Mars is the ruler of your of your 9th house and of your 4th house. So I do believe that you are in for an exciting new beginning, an exciting new development career-wise at the time of this eclipse, my dear Leos. It could have something to do with the following. You may receive an opportunity to team up with someone, career-wise, business-wise. You may receive the opportunity to go into business with someone. It has the potential to be really, really, really big for you, if I may say so. It may also involve you spending some time away from home, or it may involve working with a family member, possibly in some shape or form. In any case, you will probably see the full-blown results of whatever goes on at the time of this eclipse in January of next year, of 2023. This could come at you completely out of nowhere. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't trust whatever door opens up in front of you. Some Leos may also decide around this time, or may receive the opportunity to go into a new industry altogether professionally. If you are a Virgo sun or a Virgo rising, this eclipse on the 30th of April, week before, week after, is likely to bring in some sort of exciting new development, a new chapter in terms of your studies, in terms of academia, in terms of traveling, in terms of foreign lands and foreign countries. It could also bring really good news connected with some sort of legal matter that impacted both you and a partner in your life. That is, if you have a partner. If not, then that's okay. Also, you could be receiving exciting news, positive news connected with visas, connected with a journey, a trip, connected with residency, and so on. This is also likely to be an exciting time, I dare say, in terms of your belief system and your personal life philosophy. You may have an epiphany. You may all of a sudden look back at your life and say, okay, I get it, or I see it, or I'm looking at my life in a different way. There's also a possibility that at this point in time, maybe something happens in the life of your partner that will, for the long run, maybe take both of you away from home more. So it could bring some more traveling into your life. In any case, you seem to be excited about it. Your partner seems to be excited about it, obviously, if they exist. So all good. All good here. If you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, 30th of April, week before, week after, this solar eclipse is happening in your 8th house, and it is harmoniously aspecting Mars in Pisces in your 6th house of day-to-day work. My lovely Libras, if you are in a relationship, then this eclipse could bring some really good news, some really positive news connected with the job of a partner, maybe also connected with their investments, with their inheritance or something of that type. You could also receive some brilliant news connected with a loan, a mortgage, or a lump sum of money that you've been waiting. It could bring a windfall. I wouldn't necessarily say it's something that you haven't worked for, because you have maybe, but it's not your salary. So it definitely doesn't seem to be your salary. It may also feel like you have uncovered an exciting new way to deal with something at work, or something of a health-related nature that has been pretty much at the top of your mind throughout most of 2022. In all fairness, you also seem to find a solution to get out of a crisis health-wise, if you have been experiencing anything in that regard. My dear Scorpios, Scorpio Sun and Scorpio risings. I mean, you know what I'm going to say, Scorpios. This eclipse, it's a solar eclipse in your 7th house of marriage and partnerships. I'm so excited. Who's getting married? Who's getting engaged? I'm like, tell me. All jokes aside, there is a very high chance that if you are in a relationship, your partner might surprise you with a ring. If you're already engaged to be married, then your partner might surprise you with other news that kind of like changes the dynamic between the two of you for the long run. You all seem to be excited about whatever is going on in your lives. There seems to be a lot of love between the two of you. If you're not in a relationship, and if you want to be, some might say no, this could be a time when you meet someone, when you have a fated encounter. Maybe it doesn't feel like it straight away. You might need to wait until January of next year for it to feel fated, but someone very important is entering your life around this time. And it could be someone that helps you appreciate yourself more, that helps you have more fun, that makes life more enjoyable overall. If you are a Sagittarius sun or a Sagittarius rising, the eclipse on the 30th of April, a week before, week after, is happening in your 6th house of day-to-day work. Oh my days. And it is very nicely aspected to Mars and Pisces in your 4th house of home. You're starting a new job maybe from home, or there's kind of like an opportunity that comes your way, job-wise, work-wise, that allows you to achieve, let's say, a better work-life balance. You may also start literally some sort of work connected with the purchase or the sale of a property. What do I mean by that? So you might start going through the motions. You might initiate the process. There's also a possibility that you may start paying more attention to your health around this time, after having been maybe inspired by a family member. If there was a family member that was experiencing, I don't know, some health-related issues, Sagittarius, it does feel like there's some sort of like solution coming up around the 30th of April. It's good news in general. It seems to be good news that's going to keep you busy. So like I said, some of you might start a new job. Some of you might join a new team. Some of you may start learning something new, practical, that you're going to utilize at work. If something happens in the life of a parent, or if something happens at home, it also seems to add things to your to-do list, let's say. Now, if you are a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, my dear Capricorns. Okay, so I have to say it. This eclipse, 30th of April, week before, week after, is happening in your 5th house of children. So I know I've been banging on about pregnancy, but let's just face it. This eclipse is conjunct Uranus. There could be an unexpected pregnancy. I'll put it out there. But everyone seems to be happy about it. So if it does happen, it's like, oh, everything is aligned. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's very nicely aspected to Mars in Pisces, this eclipse, so I do believe there's going to be news. I also believe that if you go out into the world, if you socialize around this time, if you attend any sort of like social event, or if you need to take some sort of trip, short distance, and if you're not in a relationship, then you can fall in love. And I mean it, Capricorns. You are likely to, unless you decide to crawl under a rock. If you're single, then you may very well fall in love around this time. This is also a time of maybe an unexpected discovery when it comes to your passions and hobbies. So you might all of a sudden realize that you are very good at I don't know, creating jewelry, or you have an eye for design, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this was something that I enjoy doing and I'm actually good at. So it can feel like, ta-da! You may also initiate an exciting new creative project, or there could be someone coming into your life and say, let's work on this creative project together. Maybe it doesn't feel big to start with, but it may, you may realize how big it actually was next year in January. My dear Aquarius, Aquarius suns and Aquarius risings, 30th of April, week before, week after, there is a new moon solar eclipse happening in your 4th house of home, family, roots, and the past. Very nicely aspected to Mars in Pisces in your 2nd house. Okay, so sudden, unexpected, exciting developments taking place in your home and family life. All of a sudden, you might realize, Aquarius, especially Aquarius risings, that you gotta move. I don't know why. Maybe because you're making more money. Maybe because the family is growing and expanding. Maybe because you receive a job offer abroad or in a different city. But there does seem to be a lot of incentive for you to switch things up home and family wise and living situation wise. Incentive that also has some sort of financial component to it. So maybe it wasn't exactly what you had planned, but you're like, okay, I'll take it. It somehow it all fits. Somehow everything is aligned. You may also receive an opportunity to maybe work from home and make more money at this point in time. You may also start channeling a lot of money into your home, but you realize that for whatever reason, things are aligning much better than you thought they would. If you've been hoping to find a property, for instance, if you've been hoping to find a new home, boy, you're in for like some really good some really good things, some really good news around this time. And if you are a Pisces sun or Pisces rising, the new moon solar eclipse in Taurus happening on the 30th of April, week before, week after, is taking place in your 3rd house, and it is very nicely aspected to Mars in Pisces in your 1st house. You may feel inspired to start learning something new, maybe start learning a new language, start learning a new skill, start developing yourself in a new direction. Why? Because you want to, because it makes you feel good, because it makes you feel strong, because it makes you feel empowered. This could also be a time when you buy a new car. It could also be a time when you have some sort of very important conversation in your life, and maybe that doesn't feel big. You seem to have a very important conversation around the 30th of April. It could be with a sibling, it could be with a neighbor, it could be with someone in the local community, and you realize something very important about yourself and about where you want to be headed moving forward in terms of your life direction. If you have siblings, then there could be some really good news, really positive news making their way to you from your sibling side. Maybe it's not exactly what you thought your siblings would be doing at this point in time, but it does seem to make you feel like, oh yes, like I'm gonna get involved in this, or like this is something that will also have kind of like a positive impact upon my life. If they're happy, I'm happy, and so on. So I like it. I love it overall. Some of you might also get your driver's license around this time, or start taking driving classes. And if you decide to do that, I'd say this is the perfect time to do so, my dear Pisces. Now, this is the eclipse. This is the summary for the 12 zodiac signs of the eclipse taking place on the 30th of April. Let us also look, because this is an eclipse season special, let us also look at the lunar eclipse that is happening on the 15th, 16th of May in Scorpio, so on the Scorpio-Taurus axis at 25 degrees, 17 minutes of Scorpio. So again, I repeat, if you have planets in fixed signs around 25 degrees, so Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, you're going to feel this eclipse the most. The lunar eclipse is a full moon, you could say. Mercury is retrograde at the time. We have a mixed bag. So we have some tension in the sky because the eclipse is in a tense aspect to Saturn. However, we also have some really nice aspects too from the eclipse to Neptune and to Mars in Pisces. And also a bit of a, let's call it wide trine to Jupiter in Aries. Mars is the ruler of the eclipse, and Mars is conjunct Neptune. So what can we expect at a collective level from this eclipse? There may be some sort of squeeze when it comes to access to some sort of like natural resource. There will be maybe a squeeze when it comes to accessing petrol, coal, gas, and any and all of the aforementioned. There may also be, well, we may experience at a collective level some sort of milestone moment, a decision that is being taken by the powers that be, by politicians, by whoever is kind of like leading the show. We may experience some sort of decision, let's say, that is meant to be empowering in the long run. So, for instance, no longer wanting to kind of like utilize coal and gas, or no longer wanting to rely on this. So it's let's say it's having kind of like a long-term view. This decision maybe that is taken by the powers that be, maybe to no longer utilize, like I said, so much gas or something like that. But in the short term, there will probably be dissatisfaction, dissent, and a squeeze felt by normal people, by people like you and me, by literally regular folks. Why? So people seem to be discontent with this decision, even though they might see how this is positive in the long run. In the short term, they're like, but what about now? This is a crisis. And it does feel like this lunar eclipse brings with it some sort of crisis. There's also a solution that is being pinpointed by this lunar eclipse. And the solution is, I dare say, it's got something to do with more sharing and less borders, or less kind of less strictly defined borders and structures, maybe between countries. The people are not happy, but there is a way to make people happy. There is a way to kind of like solve this crisis. I will also say this. I'm not really liking how investments, the stock market is looking at this point in time. It genuinely feels like there's a contraction, maybe in terms of people's assets, in terms of the value of people's assets. It's a challenging time in that regard. It doesn't mean that things won't get better in the long run. They probably will, but in the short term, it may feel like some of the things that we relied upon in terms of like physical, tangible assets, it may feel like they no longer are worth as much as they used to be worth in the past. I also want to flag the following, folks. Very important. Look back at what was going on in your life between the last week of February and the first week of March of this year. And also some of the themes that came up in your life last year around the 4th of November, a few days before, a few days after, because this is when we experienced a new moon in Scorpio, and this is the full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So there could be a continuation of themes. This lunar eclipse will be visible. And you know what they say, that it's the countries that kind of like see the eclipse. It's the parts of the globe that see the eclipse, from which the eclipse is visible, that feel the eclipse the most, or that are at the forefront of our mind at eclipse, throughout eclipse season. So this eclipse is going to be visible from North and South America, Europe, Africa, parts of Asia, pretty much everyone. I mean, not Australia, of course, but yeah, we're definitely going to feel this globally. There's a contraction, there's a crisis, something is falling apart, something is breaking apart, something is also coming to a close, some sort of crisis. It's culminating. I can't help but mention that the war in Ukraine started in the last week of February. So this eclipse brings to a close events that occurred, or events that kind of like were initiated both this year from the last week of February until the first week of March, and last year around the 4th of November. This eclipse is part of the Saros series 131. This lunar Saros series started on the 10th of May, 1427, and it ends in the year 2707 on the 7th of July. The former most recent eclipse, part of this Saros series, was on the 4th of May 2004. Now remember that each eclipse that is part of a Saros series carries with it the energy or the themes of the initial eclipse, of the eclipse that kind of like kicked off this this series. So let's look at what was going on in the sky in the year 1427. We had a T-square in the sky then, as we have it now. The difference is that this T-square from the eclipse on the 15th, 16th of May, depending on where you are located in the world, I can actually tell you exactly the accurate time. So it's happening on the 16th of May at 4:13 in the morning GMT time. So you can adjust that for your own time zone. So the mother eclipse of this Saros series pinpoints towards the following themes. So there was a T-square in the sky between the moon, the sun, and Mars in Leo. So there were probably significant fights over resources, over food, over land. At the time, there was definitely. So this is the energy of conflict, of saying, this is mine and I'm not going to share it, and I'm going to fight for it, and I'm also going to take some of what is yours because I know where you've kind of like hidden your weapons, and I know your strategies of defense, so I'm going to utilize that. However, there was at the same time a beautiful aspect pattern in the sky. A grand trine between Neptune and Leo, Saturn and Sagittarius, and Uranus and Aries. Okay, so this is very interesting. It feels like there was some sort of like crossing of borders, and maybe some sort of like new alliances being formed out of conflicts for land, for resources, for food. And there were all sorts of like innovative solutions that maybe blurred boundaries or dissolved certain boundaries that were possibly experienced at the time. Also, the ruler of the eclipse, which is Mars, was in a harmonious aspect with Venus. Of course, Venus is the negotiator. Venus is the builder of bridges. So that's why I'm thinking, even at this eclipse right now in May, 15th, 16th of May, yes, there is some sort of crisis, but there's also maybe countries, maybe entities that we can become allies with so that we solve this crisis. That is the gist of it. So my apologies for geeking out so much over this eclipse. I'm now going to jump into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs. Remember to listen to the update for your rising sign first. If you don't know your rising sign, listen to the update for your sun sign. If you're an Aries sun or an Aries rising, my dear Aries, on the 15th, 16th of May, there's a full moon lunar eclipse triggering your financial axis, the second house, 8th house axis. It's in a harmonious aspect with Neptune and Mars in the 12th house. But it is squaring Saturn and Aquarius in the 11th house of long-term goals, plans, and dreams. I do recommend, first and foremost, Aries, having a think about what events occurred in your life financially, what happened in your financial life and sector this year, from the last week of February until the first week of March, and also last year around the 4th of November. There could be some sort of like reflection of themes or continuation of themes that you experience at the time of this full moon lunar eclipse. Remember to also look at the 15th, 16th of May, week before, week after. You're probably going to hear some news connected with having to make a significant payment. Maybe it's also a time when you hear news that you did not necessarily see coming or that you aren't necessarily looking forward to, connected with the topic of inheritance. That is very, very possible. It's also possible that your partner, if you are in a relationship, may experience hardship financially, and that seems to put a little bit of a strain on maybe the area of intimacy. It could be that a partner actually releases or loses their source of income or a source of income. So as a result of this, you may need to reevaluate your entire budget, Aries. Now, if you are a Taurus sun or a Taurus rising, this lunar eclipse, 16th of May, week before, week after, carries on from whatever was unfolding in your life. So kind of like continues to bring into your life themes that may have come up both last year around the 4th of November and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March. It's a moment of culmination. It's an aha moment. Which is squaring Saturn in your 10th house of career, public status, and public reputation. The eclipse is really nicely aspected to the planets in your 11th house. So a few things may happen here. You may take some sort of like significant decision connected with one of your relationships, connected with a partnership. You may decide to say yes or no to a partner. Some Taurus folks may decide to break up. Some Taurus folks may decide to commit for the long run. Some Taurus folks may look at someone who's in their lives and say, okay, oh my God, I believe I've got feelings for you. I want to be more than friends. I want this to become a thing. I want this to become a serious relationship. Sagittarians may also realize that you no longer want to carry on with some sort of business partnership in your life. You may be fed up. That's the word. That's what I'm looking for. You may be completely fed up with a boss. You may be completely fed up with a business partner, and you might decide goodbye, to say goodbye to them. If this is something that's going to free up your mind and free up some extra energy for you to focus on other goals, for you to prioritize other goals and objectives, I'd say do it. There's also a possibility that something happens in your professional life and it brings a lot of clarity on one of your most significant relationships, my dear Taurus. So it may not initially feel related, but it does seem to kind of like, this eclipse does seem to link your professional life with your relationship status somehow. You might also have some sort of like big announcement to make to the outside world about a relationship in your life. Maybe it's not exactly what the world thought would hear from you, but alas, it's your relationship. It's not theirs. My dear Geminis, Gemini suns, and Gemini risings. On the 16th of May, a week before, week after, this lunar eclipse in Scorpio is taking place in your 6th house of day-to-day work. It is forming a tense aspect with Saturn and Aquarius in your 9th house, but a really nice aspect to Neptune and Mars in your 10th house of career. So first of all, Geminis, look back at what was going on in your life work-wise this year between the last week of February until the first week of May, and last year around the 4th of November, because this eclipse seems to be somehow connected with maybe events or the themes that came up for you at these key times. It is probably going to bring some sort of closure, ending, culminating moment work-wise for you. So there could be kind of like a colleague leaving, there could be an opening, there could be, well, a revelation that you experience at this point in time where you decide, you know what, I'm in a dead-end job. So if I want to advance career-wise, I might as well hand in my resignation. And I realize that I'm being super dramatic, but it could be like that. It could also feel like events that you did not predict, that you could not foresee, give you a strong nudge to make a decision, to make some sort of long-term decision connected with your work environment. You could receive a job offer. It's possible. If you are waiting for some sort of response, it might not be exactly what you thought you would receive. It could also involve some traveling. It could also involve maybe going through some sort of like a long, strenuous process connected with passports, residencies, visas, etc., etc. But on the other hand, if it's in your best interest career-wise in the long run, I mean, you might as well go through the motions and maybe just kind of like start taking care of this maybe legal or visa related process. If you're a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising, like yours truly, the lunar eclipse on the 16th of May, week before, week after, seems to somehow be connected with the themes that came up in your life, Cancerians, last year around the 4th of November, and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March. It's happening in your 5th house of creative self-expression. So you could have some sort of like unexpected or let's say aha moment, unexpected idea or an aha moment connected with one of your creative projects. I like the fact that this eclipse is in a harmonious aspect to transiting planets in your 9th house, but it is in a tense aspect to Saturn in Aquarius in your 8th house. So you may feel like you're being kind of like pushed to bring to a close a creative project. Maybe you don't feel 100% satisfied with how it has turned out. That doesn't mean that it won't be very well received. It may be like incredibly well received, but you do seem to feel kind of like pressured to bring it to a close, maybe by a partner, maybe by a business partner, by someone from the outside. Even if you're not 100% sure that this is it, that there is no more extra work to be done. Some Cancerians may also hear news connected with their children, especially if they have children. If you don't have children, then there could be news of pregnancy of some sort. Some Cancerians may also have to travel around this time in order to complete a creative project that you did together with a group of people, or that you were involved in together with a group of people. I will say this: whatever happens, you probably didn't see it coming, but that doesn't mean that you won't smash it anyway. There's a lot going on in your favor. You kind of like seem to improvise very, very well. And even if there's a sense of like maybe inner crisis kind of like happening because you didn't think things would play out in this manner, it's only you who sees it, Cancerians. So keep that in mind. If you are a Leo sun or a Leo rising, this eclipse on the 16th of May is a lunar eclipse, so a point of ending, culmination, closure, happening in your 4th house of home or triggering, let's say, your 4th house, 10th house axis. It is in a tense aspect with Saturn in Aquarius in your 7th house of relationships, but it's in a harmonious aspect with the planets, the transiting planets in your 8th house. So this could be a time when you move into a new home, when you realize that you have to sell a home, that you have to leave behind a property, that you have to leave behind maybe an important part of your childhood or an important part of your past, because duty calls. And when I say duty, I mean probably duty towards a relationship, towards a partner. Also look back, Leos, at what was going on in your life last year around the 4th of November and this year from the first week of February. My apologies, from the last week of February until the first week of March, so 2022. This could also be a time when something comes to a close, something comes to an end in the life of a parent. Maybe they sell a property and they decide to kind of like give you some sort of like gift, give you some sort of like early inheritance, something of that type, of that nature. You may be a little bit heartbroken, Leos, because if, for instance, your parents are selling, I don't know, your childhood home, it's like, oh no, it's my childhood home. So it does feel like you're leaving behind a part of your past. Somehow it feels like you're not necessarily emotionally excited to do this, on the contrary, but on the other hand, it does feel like this is it, this is life, this is what needs to be done. If you are a Virgo sun or a Virgo rising, 16th of May, week before, week after, this full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio is activating your axis of learning and of traveling. Have a think about, Virgos, what was going on in your life connected with traveling, learning, and maybe even siblings last year around the 4th of November and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March, because there could be some sort of like reflection of those themes at the time of this eclipse. A few things. So you may hear news connected with your education. News that kind of like changes the entire game for you. News that maybe you didn't see coming. It's a mixed bag. There's good news and there's challenging news. The good news is that, well, you can finally move forward with your life because maybe you've been sitting on kind of like pins and needles, waiting for this moment. The more challenging news is that your work is not done. Let's say. So there is still some work to be done. If you ask me, if you are waiting, for instance, to be kind of like accepted into some sort of like university, college, and so on, maybe you're not getting accepted by your first option. That doesn't mean that you won't have a fabulous time and you won't evolve if you go to the second best or to whoever it is that has accepted you. This could also be a time when, let's put it this way, something comes to an end at work because of issues of a legal nature. It could also be that a coworker that you were relying upon leaves. It could also be that the way in which you are working, processes that you are used to in your job are no longer going to be applicable after this because of changes in legislation. Any sort of travel plans that you had, I do expect some sort of restraints, restrictions, delays, constraints coming from your work, I'd say. So you might even have to postpone a trip at this point in time. If you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, my dear Libras, this lunar eclipse is happening in your second house of income. It's in a harmonious aspect to the planets in your sixth house of day-to-day work, but it's in a tense aspect with Saturn in Aquarius in your fifth house. So you may receive some sort of payment, a lump sum of money at this point in time. You may also realize that you're very appreciated for one of your skills, for one of your resources, for one of your assets. But on the other hand, it may feel like whatever news you receive at this point in time of a financial nature does bring extra work to your plate and does take you away from what you enjoy doing, or from kind of like having more fun. I'd say there could be some good news connected with mortgages, loans. If you're expecting news on bursaries, scholarships, and so on, they're probably going to be good news. But on the other hand, it may also feel like you need to sacrifice a little bit some of your passions and hobbies and some of the time that you spent enjoying yourselves, Libras. Look back at what was going on in your financial sector also last year in November around the 4th, and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March, because this eclipse brings to a close themes that came up in your life at these two moments in time. My dear Scorpios, Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. Well, you're in the spotlight. Of course you are. It feels like a massive chapter in your life on a personal level is coming to a close. It's ending. This is it. This is done. Like there's no going back. There's no turning back. You may take a long-term decision at this point in time to do one of the following: to either move in with a partner, or to move out of a home that you were living in with a partner. You may also realize that your life together as partners has changed dramatically because you've either made a massive commitment to each other, or some sort of duty that you need to deal with together has come up in your life. It's a bit of a make it or break it moment, partnership-wise, relationship-wise. You may also realize that this is it. You're fully grown up. A chapter in your life has come to a close. You can no longer, it almost feels like you can no longer rely that much on your parents, on what gave you a strong sense of security up until this point. That doesn't mean that you can't do things on your own. So even if it feels daunting a little bit, you may feel like you're on your own at this point in time, Scorpios. But that's okay. You've got whatever it is that you need to make things happen on your own. And this eclipse is really nicely aspected to the planets in your 5th house, Neptune and Mars. So stepping into this kind of like new chapter of your life and saying goodbye to the old chapter, maybe saying goodbye to a home, saying goodbye to a relationship as you knew it. It does feel like it brings you a sense of confidence and empowerment, Scorpios. So I like it. Overall, I like it, even if it feels scary, even if it feels daunting. Now, if you're a Sagittarius sun or a Sagittarius rising, 16th of May, week before, week after, the lunar eclipse is happening in your 12th house. It's actually activating your axis of service. It's nicely aspected to the planets in your 4th house of home. It's an intense aspect to Saturn in Aquarius in your 3rd house. Okay, so you might be saying goodbye to a job. You might also reach a point of what feels like crisis, health-wise. But the good news is that you're going to be forced by the universe to rest. And if you do rest, you're going to realize, alas, I'm like a new person. I feel so much better. If you feel like giving up upon a job or upon a set of duties and responsibilities because you want to improve your mental health, I would do it. And yes, people might try to convince you to do otherwise. People might say things like, oh, but think about the money, think about your obligations. And I'll just say this, if you're in a good state of mind, you can make more money, you can take care of your duties, you can take care of your obligations, but if you're not, you're making yourself sick. And even physically. This could be a time of something kind of like getting like intense and acute health-wise, especially if this is something that you have dealt with also last year around the 4th of November and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March. There could also be something kind of like falling apart and breaking apart and kind of like you having to say goodbye to it, connected with your current means of transportation. So I'm thinking your car. You might say goodbye to it because, alas, it's done. It's kind of like beyond the point of repair. If you have siblings might also have some challenging news connected with your work, but they seem to need your encouragement, if anything, not your judgment, not telling them how things should be. they need to be emboldened, if anything, Sagittarians. If you're a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, this lunar eclipse is happening in your 11th house of long-term goals, plans, and dreams. Capricorns, it feels like a dream is kind of like is materializing around this time. A long-term goal, a long-term objective is materializing around this time. It could be something that was on your mind that you were putting a lot of energy into. Also last year around the 4th of November, and this year from the last week of February until the first week of March. This could also be a time when someone comes into your life or someone exits your life, and that seems to make a significant difference in terms of how you approach your long-term goals and objectives. A friend might actually exit your life because they're moving, because they're no longer going to be working for the same company that you're working for. It's bittersweet. You're happy for them, and on the other hand, for selfish reasons, you're like, no, but what about me? How am I going to handle this? You might also have some sort of like big hurrah together with a group of people in your life around this time that you know in the long run will no longer be as present in your life as they have been before. So let's say you're leaving a job, or let's say you're kind of like moving to a different city, and you are doing one last kind of like leaving drinks or big event to say goodbye. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. That's how I see it. If you're an Aquarius sun or an Aquarius rising, this lunar eclipse in Scorpio on the 16th of May, week before, week after, is happening in your 10th house of career. My dear Aquarians, you are either receiving an important opportunity, or let's say you're either receiving a promotion career-wise, or you realize that in order to take your career to the next level, you got to step away from something that was super important for you professionally up until this point. It could have been like, I don't know, like an industry, a job, a sector that you were very attached to, some sort of like status or role that you were attached to. If you do decide to walk away from something, or if you do decide to kind of like no longer activate in a specific field, it's probably going to be for the better, even when it comes to your finances. So see it as a time to move forward, to say your goodbyes, and to make the decision that is going to be the most lucrative for you in the long term. This is also a time when you seem to receive acknowledgement, public acknowledgement for what you have achieved career-wise, and at the same time, it feels like you've proven something to yourself. So you're proud of yourself, and now it's almost like you're giving yourself inner permission to focus on something else. This can also be a time when maybe there's kind of like changes in leadership in the company that you work for. You could hear news, maybe if you're waiting for like news connected with the promotion, another job. This can be a time when you hear of this. It does seem to make you wonder whether you're in the best place that you can be. It also seems to make you wonder whether you are able to carry more responsibilities on your shoulders. I mean, you can. Like, let me just say it. You absolutely can. What's keeping you from doing that? So I would also recommend looking back at what was going on in your career last year around the 4th of November, and of course from the last week of February until the first week of March, because that's probably going to give you some really good indicators as to what you can expect. You could be also wrapping up a very high visibility project, which is going to impact your status and reputation for the long run, Aquarius, at this point in time. And if you're a Pisces sun or Pisces rising, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio on the 16th of May is happening in your 9th house of belief systems, of your connection with the divine, of long distance travel, of legal matters. It's nicely aspected to transiting planets in your 2nd house of income, but it's an intense aspect to Saturn in your 12th house, transiting Saturn in the 12th house. Pisces, look back at what was going on for you, travel-wise, academically, belief systems-wise, legally. What was going on for you around the 4th of November and from the last week of February until the first week of March, because this eclipse is kind of like taking the baton from these two previous time frames and reaching the finish line in this journey, in this marathon. Let's put it this way. A legal matter, it may come to a close. Maybe not exactly how you thought it would. It does feel like, my apologies, I realize that I might have said earlier that this eclipse is nicely aspected to planets in your second house. It's actually nicely aspected to planets, the transiting planets in your first house of identity. So a legal matter may be coming to an end, to a close. You seem to feel free and liberated. You seem to feel like, okay, now this is off my plate. But on the other hand, there is kind of like an element that didn't exactly play out in the way that you thought it would, or in the way that you wanted it to play out. It could be something connected with one of your long-term goals and objectives. It's possible. It could also feel like, in order for this to come to a close, you have to surrender something that was very important for you. Maybe like a mentality, like a principle, or something of that type, something of that nature. You might decide to drop it. You might decide, you know what, I don't have time for this. Or I've got more important things in my life. Even if it feels unfair, even if you're thinking they're in the wrong and I'm in the right, it's like, no, I've got like a new life direction, a new life path. This is part of my past. I'm leaving it. It could be a time when you receive positive news connected with visas, connected with traveling, connected with residency. There's maybe some sort of like a formal, official notice that you receive at this point in time. I'm also thinking that you're maybe making a significant payment around this time, or maybe completing a payment connected with your education, connected with, again, visas, residency, travel. It feels like it's a massive payment, but on the other hand, you seem to be able to afford it, and you seem to feel relieved that you're in a position to make it. This could also be a time when you realize, okay, something that I used to believe in the past is no longer aligned with my current worldviews and my current belief system. So it may feel like, yes, I no longer have to lead my life according to this set of beliefs. You may also feel like a very strong connection with some sort of like higher power that is telling you what you need to let go of in terms of thinking and in terms of, again, personal life philosophy, my dear Pisces. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. It was an absolute pleasure to do this eclipse special for you. Don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram at RuxUnbelievable in one word. If you want to book a personal astrology consultation with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. And if you are an astrology student that wants to learn how to create forecasts, how to predict, how to generally look at the future with the help of transits, which is what I'm doing right now, you can sign up for the Astrological Forecasting with Transits course that I'm going to be running in May. Thank you, and I will see you next time.